Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel today. I am ranking my top 10 favorite Trains to World 5 routes from least worst to best. This is a list that I have been working on for the past couple of weeks, cobbling together like lists and things, so please leave a like for my sanity. So yes, couple of things to get out of the way first. I don't have all the DLCs for Trains to World, so some timetable layers will not show up. I will also not be discussing the pricing of any DLCs, as that is a whole topic in itself. So right, starting off with number 10. The Midland Main Line by Skyhook Games. So, starting off with the rolling stock. The class 43/0 HST. This is the Volenta engine version. It's basically a retextured version, remastered, whatever you like to call it, version of the HST for Great Western Express. The Volenta sounds were provided by Armstrong Powerhouse, and they're one of the redeeming things about this train. What else? It's also in the old East Midlands Trains livery, which went bankrupt back in 2019. The route is set in 2019, and yeah, I much prefer East Midlands Trains over East Midlands Rail. Nowadays, East Midlands Rails has retired all of their HSTs in favor of Voyagers, Meridians, and I think they've got Hitachi IETs on order, or maybe they've had them delivered. I don't know. This layers onto the East Coast Mainline Peterborough to Doncaster route for a few services. It also layers onto Southeastern High Speed as AI at St Pancras International. Next up, it's the East Midlands Trains Class 158 Sprinter. Actually really decently modelled, layers onto the Peterborough to Doncaster for the Peterborough to Grantham shuttle. Later recycled for the ScotRail Class 158 DLC for the Rivet Games is Edinburgh to Glasgow route, and later on, and will also layer onto Fife Circle. Rivet Games is Fife Circle. I like this unit. The one Skyhook did an actually really good job with the 158. They modeled it well, and yeah, nothing more to say really. It's just decent. Timetable layers. The class 37 ROG in Europhoenix colors for a couple of EMU drags to and from Leicester to Derby. I believe some of them use 375s from Southeastern High Speed, and some of them use 387s from the Brighton Main Line. So you have to have Brighton Main Line and Southeastern High Speed and the 37 ROG DLC for the 37 ROG to show up. Next, Class 45 from Northern Transpennine for Rail Tour. Class 66, also from Great Western Express, Southeastern High Speed, East Coast Mainline Peterborough to Doncaster, and West Coast Mainline South, and for some freight services. There are some gameplay packs that you can get for this route, but by Skyhook themselves. They've got two so far. One of them is a tanker one of them is an intermodal one, and then they've also got one more and a military cargo one upcoming. I'm actually interested in the military one because, for one thing, we don't have any military stuff in the game yet. And yeah. And then also Flying Scotsman from Peterborough to Doncaster for a rail tour. The Flying Scotsman was actually only added back in December 2024, so that's a more recent service. Pros, great non-linearity. You get Leicester to Derby and Nottingham, both via East Midlands Parkway. Decent rolling stock quality and decent scenery, especially East Midlands Parkway and Ratcliffe Power Station, that whole complex. However, I do have a con to point out that I didn't add in the list. In the cons list, the scenery can be a bit bland at times, but that may be realistic. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments, someone who is like a native to this area. Cons, short route length, only takes 30 minutes for the average HST run, say Leicester to Derby or Leicester to Nottingham, and an hour for the sprinter to do Leicester to Derby or Leicester to Nottingham. If you want to go Derby to Nottingham, it's half an hour in the HST and half an hour in the... no, it's like 20 minutes in the HST and 30 minutes for the Sprinter. Not much service variation, and there's not too many timetable services, but that might be realistic. Let me know down in the comments. And I've also got something else to point out. The HST also has there's a formation with 6 Mark III coaches and a formation with 8 Mark III coaches. I forgot to put that in. So yeah, I'd give this a 7 out of 10. Next up, NEC Boston to Providence, also known as Boston Sprinter, plus the Amtrak Acela Express DLC by Dovetail Games. So first up in the rolling stock, the Amtrak ACS 64, which is a Bombardier Trax locomotive originally, but Americanified. So on the left you have a normal Amtrak livery. I can't remember what phase it is. It's either phase 3 or phase 5. I can't remember. Please let me know down in the comments. And on the right we have a phase 3 livery, which was actually a Trains to World 2, which actually number 662. It carried in real life, it carried a Trains to World 2 Rush Hour promotional livery, and that livery is actually in the game, which I do like. It does add a bit of variation to the Northeast Regional services, and I think it's a good livery, and it's also cool that it carried it in real life. Next up, we have the Massachusetts Bay Transport Authority F40PH-3C, which is originally the F40PH-2 Cat from Peninsula Corridor, but extensively modified with new sounds. However, this also is a part of the MBA commuter Boston South to Worcester route via Framingham. And for some reason, that version from MBTA commuter has new sounds. Those new sounds do not apply onto the Boston Sprinter version, which just makes me so... It's just annoying. Then also we have the CTC3 cab car. It's a cab car. It basically has very similar operation to the F40PH. So, next. The Amtrak Acela Express, fastest train in North America at the time of recording. Being a DLC, it's a DLC for this route and NEC New York to Trenton, notoriously one of the worst American routes, but I do have it just for the Acela stuff, for somewhere else to run the Acela. A point of note, it is nicely modeled, but it does have a pretty shite default horn, so you probably, if you're on PC, there's a mod that fixes the horn. It's officially for TSW4, but it does work in TSW5. Next, pros. Decent rolling stock, good scenery. If you have sandpatch grade, you get static locomotives and freight wagons in the yards. I don't have sandpatch grade. And I have no intention of ever getting it, unless someone gifts it to me. It's short. It only takes about 45 minutes to do the Boston to Providence run in the ACS 64 or Acela, and then about hour and 10 minutes for the F40PH or CTC3. It's almost fully linear except for the short branch to Stoughton. Stupidly, the HSP 46 and Bombardier bi-levels do not layer in from MBTA commuter, even if you have both Boston Sprinter and MBTA commuter installed. That's strange. For what? It's there. The stock is there. Why doesn't it layer on? Come on, Dovetail. No. Sorry, never mind. I thought I'd done something wrong. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Next up, it's the remastered West Somerset Railway plus Class 83 Crompton and Class 52 Western DLCs by Dovetail Games. Quick note, comes with 2 timetables, 2017 Diesel Gala, which is the original timetable, and 2023 Steam Gala, which is a brand new update part of the remaster. First up, on the rolling stock, it's the Class 47, but it is in British Rail green, and it's preservation era. So it has AWS, it has DSD, all that stuff, for mainline running. However, it This is actually the first version of the Class 47 to ever appear in game, and all 47s that came after it, Northern TransPennine, Blackpool Branches, Preston Carlisle, they're all based on this model. However, this version of the 47 doesn't have the updated sounds as came with Northern TransPennine subsequent DLCs, and it only layers onto the Diesel Gala timetable. Next up, we have the Class 09, but also in BR Green livery. It's basically a class, in terms of operation and looks, it's basically a Class 08 without being limited to 15 miles an hour and having a horn instead of a whistle. It layers onto both timetables, but on the Diesel Gala timetable, it actually can run passenger services. What else? And then on the Steam Gala timetable, it just does a couple of shunting maneuvers, taking some coaches off of the steamers. Next up, we have the Class 33 Crompton DLC. It's in BR Green. I do like the sounds, but yeah, it's Diesel's Gala timetable only. Next up, we have the Class 52 Western DLC. I do like this. As far as I know, it doesn't layer onto any other routes, even for rail tours, which is, for me, a bit strange. And I'm also annoyed that it only comes in maroon. Yes, I know about the British Rail Blue one that comes with the Diesel Legends of the Great Western DLC, which is... Why does that even exist? Why are early, late 80s British rail stuff running on a modern era route? It's just confusing me, and it only layers onto the Diesel timetable. Okay, Diesel Gala timetable layers left to right. The Class 101 off of Tees Valley Line. All of the Class 08 Gronk variants, so that's Tees Valley Line, BR Heavy Freight Pack from Northern TransPennine, Blackpool Branches, and Preston to Carlisle. The Class 20 Thumper from Tees Valley, the Class 31 from Tees Valley, the 20 and 31 are both DLCs for Tees Valley, the Class 37, and it's from Tees Valley Line or West Cornwall Local, the Class 40 from the BR Heavy Freight Pack from Northern TransPennine, the Class 45 from Northern TransPennine, and all the Class 47 variants that came after WSR. So that's Northern TransPennine, Blackpool Branches, Preston to Carlisle. Those three versions. Steam Gala timetable layers. Flying Scotsman, the LMS Valor 4F from Peak Forest, the Stanier 8F from Peak Forest, the LMS Jubilee from Peak Forest, and then for some reason, the Regional Rail Class 150. I will get onto in a minute why I found the inclusion of the Class 150 in the timetable so confusing. Pros, you get the full line, including the main section from Bishop's Lydia to Minehead. You can also get the extension to Norton Fitzwarren and the West Somerset Railway's junction with the Cornish Main Line. If you have Great Western Express, HST AI will show up on the Cornish Main Line. The Cornish Main Line was actually never included in the original version of the WSR, so the scenery actually got extended as part of the remaster. Decent scenery, lots of rolling stock, all of which is pretty decent quality, and tons of timetable layers about the DLCs, especially for the Diesel Gala timetable. Cons, outdated, poor quality building assets and locomotive textures that have not been updated since the route came out almost 8 years ago, even since the remaster. No Steam rolling stock is included by default. You have to have one or both of these DLCs, the DLCs being Flying Scotsman and or Peak Forest. Limited timetable due to most of the route being single track, but you do expect that on a heritage railway, so it's not a big con. The inclusion of the Class 150 in the Steam timetable is puzzling, as it is A, in British Rail Regional Rail livery and not in the modern Great Western Railway livery, and B, the 150 doesn't have the WSR stations listed on its destination blinds. The Class 150, by the way, if you didn't know, it's off of West Cornwall Local. I'd also give this a 7.5 out of 10. Next up, for number 7, it's Nachtwerker Dresden plus the Railpool BR193 Vectron DLC by Dovetail Games. This route received a remaster as part of Trains in World 4 and being bundled with the Trains in World 4 Deluxe Edition. So the route received a substantial overhaul, scenery, lighting engine, and also overhead catenary. But I am going to have to talk about the catenary though. Anyway, starting off with the rolling stock. First up, it's the DBBR 442, otherwise known as Talent 2. It's a redone version of the Talent 2 from Code to Aachen and the ancient add-on Rapid Transit. This version has a much better looking DB livery than the Code to Aachen version and a patched horn. For some reason, the horn of the Talent 2 on Rapid Transit and maybe Code to Aachen, I don't know, like weirdly cuts in and out when you hold down the horn button. The Talent 2 has 3 and 4 car versions included. The 3 car is the one on your screen. The DBBR 143 recycled from Rursig Nord, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Rursig Nord? It's apparently the wrong version of the 143 for this area of Germany. I think. According to my research. DBBR 146 also runs some of the commuter services along with the 143. It's just a Bombardier Trax locomotive recycled, taken off of Mein Spessart if I'm not mistaken. Pretty uninteresting. The Dostos cab car, this has been endlessly recycled. Anytime that requires a German cab car, this thing is put in. And maybe it has a slightly livery, or maybe not. And it's in the game. They've recycled it like 9-10 times. It's ridiculous. We don't even have the version of the Dostos with the doors over the bogies. Ridiculous. Then we get the BR185 in MRC colors. Or rather, lack of color because it's black. Anyway. It's been, endlessly recycled since its debut. This debut was either Rursig Nord or Mein Spessart. I think it was Mein Spessart. Yeah, probably Mein Spessart. Anyway, this does a lot of the freight stuff. Then we also get the BR363, which is a relivery version of the 363, which is a DLC for Rursig Nord. The 363 would later go on to be recycled for the Main-Tauban route. I do like driving the 363 from time to time. It actually does quite a bit of shunting around the Nunkritz chemical plant area near Riesa, and it's actually good fun to drive. And then next up we have the DLC for this route, the Railpool BR193 Vectron. I love the Vectron. When it first came out, I was staggered about how good quality this is, because Trains in World 4, when it came out, was a disaster. But the Vectron and the Flying Scotsman saved it from utter ruin. The Vectron, chef's kiss on the quality. It's Trains of Germany quality, hands down. It's been recycled twice, both times for the Kinzigtaubahn, once in Deutsche Bahn Traffic Red livery for the freight operations, and then for the reliveried again for the Flixtrain Vectron DLC. It also includes dynamic suspension, I'm pretty sure. Then timetable layers. I had to split the images into 2 parts because there's so many. So first off, we have the DBBR 110 from Link Rheinstrecke, which does the RE50 service. I don't know why this is included since it's in the old style 1980s Orient Red livery. I assume the 110 from Bremen to Oldenburg layers in, but I don't have Bremen to Oldenburg. Next up, we have the BR111 from Salzburg to Rosenheim, which RE50 again. The BR112 from Hamburg to Lübeck, that does the RE50 service. The BR114 from the Kinzigtaubahn, that runs the RE50 service. The Deutsche Bahn Traffic Red BR185, the recycled one, that layers in from Salzburg to Rosenheim. For me, this layers in from Salzburg to Rosenheim, Kassel to Würzburg, and S-Bahn Vorarlberg. The Deutsche Bahn Traffic Red BR193 Vectron from the Kinzigtaubahn. The DBBR 218 by Trains in Germany, which is a DLC for Hamburg to Lübeck. The MRC BR182 Taurus from Hamburg to Lübeck. The BR406 Ice 3M from Code to Aachen. I don't know if the Pfalzische Ludwigsbahn version substitutes in. Please let me know down in the comments as per usual. And then the DBBR 101, the Dovetail Games version, which is a DLC for the Rheinver, Austin, Duisburg to Bochum route. Yeah, so quite a few layers. Like, I always like to see a few layers. Pros, great non-linearity. You get the Dresden to Riesa section with the main line, main commuter line, and also the bypass line for the express stuff and the freight. And then you also get the branches to Grossenhain, Meissen-Trebistal, and the Nunkritz chemical plant. The Nunkritz chemical plant, as I said before, great fun to do shunting around it with the tankers. Decent. It's also a decent length. It takes 45 minutes to complete with the DBBR 101 or ICE3N to do the Dresden to Riesa run, 50 minutes for a freight run, and upwards in an hour and 15 minutes for the RE50 service, which is and it also has a very, very rolling stock offering, but when this was released, none of the rolling stock was new. I mean, the Vectron, however, was new, but that's the DLC. Cons, we don't get a 5-card Talent 2. It's also the wrong 143 variant for this area of Germany, as I talked about before. We don't get the branch line for Dresden Neustadt to Dresden Flughafen, or Dresden Airport. Dovetail Games, before this route came out, promised that we would get the Dresden Flughafen branch. It's been going on 3 years at this point. So where is the Dresden Flughafen branch? The route has been remastered. Where did the Dresden Flughafen branch go? Anyway, we don't get the Riesa to Leipzig section, which would allow us to run the full RE50 service. The scenery can sometimes be unfinished looking, even since the remaster, and also the overhead catenary can also. I have noticed missing overhead catenary even since it was overhauled in 2023, but the situation is certainly much better than the before the route was remastered, because apparently that the before remastered version was absolutely full of the lack of catenary. Anyway, I give this route a 7.7 out of 10. Next up, it's Rivik Games' Island Line 2022 plus a mod enhancement pack. The only rolling stock we get is the Southwestern Railway Class 484, which is originally a London Underground D tube stock, but was completely rebuilt and overhauled by Viva Rail to the point where it's unrecognizable, I'd say. Acceleration physics do seem to be a bit overpowered. Like, if you say you're in a 15-mile-an-hour zone and you're coming out of Shanklin, you will overspeed if you go notch 7. You have to go like notch 3 to like take off. And how the default livery is a fictional one due to licensing issues with Southwestern Railway. You can see the old livery here, like a bit of it anyway. So this is the enhancement pack substitutes the real livery. And I must say, it does look pretty good in the realistic livery. Pros, detailed scenery. The Class 484 is excellent. The full island line is included, but that's not saying much, as it's only 8 miles. Ryde Pierhead Station, as it is on a literal pier in the literal ocean. The braiding signal box has a modeled interior, the old braiding signal box. Normally the route is signaled from Ryde St. John's Road, and that one is not modeled. Doesn't have a modeled interior, I should say. You can complete a full round trip, Ryde Pierhead to Shanklin and back, in just under an hour. Which is... I don't think there's any other route in the game which lets you do that. Which is nice if you just want to do like a quick drive. Cons... It's very short and linear, even though that is realistic. Class 484's acceleration seems overpowered, as I mentioned before. The fictional livery for the 484 included by default due to Southwestern Railway licensing issue. They do seem to be a bit tight on the old livery, licensing. Because the Island Line 2020 with the Class 483, that was in a fictional Network Southeast delivery because of the SWR licensing issues. Yeah, anyway. The route has never been updated to the post-Trains World 3 lighting engine, and the route also has a limited timetable due to the single-track sections and only one train running on the entire route during off-peak hours. I give this route an 8.5 out of 10. Next up, it's the remastered Cathcart Circle Line plus the Class 380 Desiro DLC by Dovetail Games. There are actually quite a few Dovetail products on this list, but they are the main developer for the game, so hey ho. First up, it's the ScotRail Class 314 electric multiple unit. Pretty nicely modeled, otherwise unremarkable. I don't really drive it that much. And then also the DLC for this route, the Class 380 Desiro. This is probably my favorite electric multiple unit in the entire game. You get the Stroke 0 and Stroke 1 versions. They can do, you could make a bunch of different formations with them. You could go up to like 9, 10 cars with this thing. If you couple like a 4-car, 3-car together. Yeah. Superbly modeled, yes. It also layers onto Rivet Games' Edinburgh to Glasgow route if you have that. You have to have the ScotRail Class 158 Sprinter DLC, because that comes with a whole timetable. And it also includes dynamic suspension, which is is updated as part of Train Sim 5. I don't think it had it originally. Timetable layers, ScotRail Class 158 by Skyhook Games. This is mainly AI at Glasgow Central, but also does a couple of depot runs. Same for Rivets Class 170 off the 5 Circle. Same for the Rivets Class 385 off of Edinburgh to Glasgow. Class 66, all versions except Great Western Express, East Coastway, and RHTT versions. Then the Class 20 Thumper off of Tees Valley. The Class 31 off of Tees Valley. I forgot to remove that bit. Oh dear. The Class 33 Crompton off the West Somerset Railway. The Class 37 off the Tees Valley and West Cornwall Local. The Class 40 off of Northern Trans Pennine BR Heavy Freight Pack. The Class 45 off of Northern Trans Pennine. And the Class 47, which is all versions except for the West Somerset Railway later on. And then if you have West Coast Mainline South, the Class 390 and Pendolino and Class 350 Desire layer in as AI at Glasgow Central. The pros of this route: non-linearity, you get Glasgow Central, the entire Cathcart Circle, and the branches to Newton, Neilston, and Shields Depot. The rolling stock is excellent, especially the Class 380. You have lots of timetable layers, pretty decent scenery since the remaster too. Cons, it is pretty short, even if it is the entire Cathcart Circle network. And also, the Class 350 Desire AI layer, it's supposed to represent the time LNWR loaned 350s to TransPennine Express, but it's still strange to see LNWR's 350s at Glasgow Central. Yeah, overall I give this a 9 out of 10. Next up, it is the Niedertalbahn by Train Sim Germany. Yeah. So, rolling stock, you get the DBBR 628 diesel multiple unit. One thing I don't mention later is that when the Niedertalbahn came out, it was the first fully non-electrified German route in the game. So that's significant in itself. Anyway, the 628. So it's in the old retro Deutsche Bahn mint livery. Layers onto Link Rheinstrecke if you have that. And then also with the route, you also get a modern Deutsche Bahn Traffic Red version that layers onto modern-era German routes, for example, S-Bahn Vorarlberg, Salzburg, or Salzburg to Rosenheim, or the Main-Talbahn. On the left is the mint version, on the right is the modern Traffic Red version. Honestly, I'm pretty tied on which livery I think is better. Both of them look awesome. Next up, we get the Deutsche Bahn BR365, which is an overhauled and backdated version of the 363 from Nahverke Dresden. They also recycled the sounds as well, and apparently has the wrong prime mover sounds. I'll get into that later, and it's mainly used for sugar beet hauling. Yeah, because the Niedertalbahn, at the time this route is set, 1989, I'm pretty sure, there was still a minor freight operation hauling sugar beets. How cool is that? You also get the ES50 hopper wagon for the sugar beet hauling. That was a completely custom wagon at the time. You also, if you have Link Reinstrecke, you could also see AI Electrics at Bad Vilbel and Heldenberg and Verdecken. From left to right, the Deutsche Bahn Orient Red BR110, the Deutsche Bahn Mint Endwagen Kepcar, and the Deutsche Bahn Maroon and Cream BR103. Next up. Pros. Some of the best scenery ever in Trains of World. I'm not kidding. This route released almost 2 years ago. It's like March 2023. Like, the pastoral scenery is second to none. Even by today's standards, this route has jaw-droppingly good scenery. Absolutely superb rolling stock, especially the 628. The 628 is a work of art. Realistic AI timetable layers from Link Reinstrecke. Inclusion of the Deutsche Bahn Red BR628 to layer onto modern German routes. And number 5. A mysterious portal north of Kilianstadten that links it to the Mittenwald Bahn if you have that. More on that later. Cons, it's short at only 30 kilometers and linear. The 365 has wrong prime mover sounds, so this isn't Trains of Gemini's fault. The sounds were impossible to source, apparently. Excuse me. The timetable is also rather limited due to mostly single track running. But that's like just a minor con. Overall, I would give this a 9.5 out of 10. Next up, it's the most recent release in Train Sim World's catalog. This is the Mittenwald Bahn by Train Sim Germany. First up on the rolling stock front, it is the Österreichische Bundesbahnen, or OBB, or Austrian Federal Railways 1020 Crocodile. We have needed a crocodile-style locomotive in the game for years, and to have one in the game, finally, in this livery, by Train Sim Germany is just a dream come true, honestly. It's a subclass of the E94 locomotive family manufactured in the early 40s by then Deutsche Reichsbahn. Yes, this was the 1940s. It's probably the hardest train to drive in the game because it's like very manual, no assists, nothing. Perks include a fully modeled engine room, sounds recorded off a real E94 that used to be an OBB 1020. TSG, there's a heritage railway that operates one of these, and TSG got to go out, they had access to all the technical manuals, they got to record all of the sounds, and the OBB Blood Orange livery is just simply gorgeous, and it also has dynamic suspension. Like, this is probably one of the best modeled trains in the entire game, hands down. Next up, we get the Deutsche Bahn BR111, which is a backdated and overhauled version of the 111 from Salzburg to Rosenheim, or the Kensington gameplay pack, or Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn. It's complete with a retro Deutsche Bahn blue and cream livery, which I think looks absolutely superb. It has models in Ducey instead of PZB, and Ducey is basically backdated PZB it's basically PZB without a lot of the guardrails that PZB introduced. Well, I don't know. I don't really use a Ducey or PZB. Anyway, it also has a backdated cab with no computer screens. I love this thing. It's mainly used for the express services, not so much for the freight. Superb train. Like, I was impressed with the 111 from when I got Salzburg to Rosenheim. This thing is on a whole nother level. Timetable layers, you only get 2. You get the Deutsche Bahn BR365 from the Neddertalbahn for a 5-part freight trip from Garmisch-Partenkirchen over to Mittenwald and back. And then also you get the Deutsche Bahn, and then also as a layer you get the Deutsche Bahn BR103 from Link Reinstrecke, which does AI at Innsbruck Hauptbahnhof and also has a couple of depot runs in the timetable. Pros, the best scenery we've ever had in Trains of World. I'm not joking. Like, the mountain scenery is, oh man! Second to none quality rolling stock. AI cable cars at Mittenwald, which requires a mastery completion, but is pretty cool. It's actually like a 5-minute walk from Mittenwald station. Fully animated cows, yes, animated cows, but which currently are slightly buggy. They can get stuck and they can get run over by passing trains if you honk the horn. Number 5, a mysterious portal west of Kaltenbrunn that links it to the Niddertalbahn, if you have that. It's the same portal. It's the same portal as the one on the Niddertalbahn, which is north of Kilianstad. It links it to that one. Cons, it's linear, has a bit of a limited timetable due to single track. These are minor cons. Overall rating 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Like, the scenery sells it, the crocodile sells it. Yeah. Number 2, it's Blackpool Branches by Just Trains. First off, on the rolling stock, it is the Class 142 Pacer, probably one of the most infamously terrible trains to ever come out of British Rail. The rendition of it in game, though, is awesome. Superb sounds, modeling, model guard panels, yeah, just knocks everything out of the park. It was the first train in the game to ever include dynamic suspension. Yeah, Just Trains beat Dovetail Games to the punch with dynamic suspension. How funny is that? You get 3 liveries. On the left, it's British Rail Provincial Blue, which is like the main livery. Then you also get Greater Manchester Public Transport something. Let me know in the comments, I can't remember. Orange, and then on the right you have Skipper Chocolate and Cream. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, why is Skipper Chocolate and Cream included? Wasn't that mainly used like down in Cornwall, Devon, and like all the branch lines in that area? Yes, but because they had so much flange squeal due to them being based on buses and also having being very underpowered for the relatively steep grades, a lot of them were actually assigned up to the north of England after a few years. There is photographic evidence of the skippers running around in the north of England, which is pretty crazy. This thing also layers onto Rivet Games' awful West Cornwall local, if you have that. It does not layer onto Northern Transpennine or Tees Valley. This is not Just Trains' fault. Apparently, Dovetail wasn't willing to put in the work to have these layer onto those routes. Anyway, next up, it is the Class 47, which is an upgraded version of the 47 for Northern Transpennine, complete with high-intensity headlamp. You get it was in late 2024 was updated to have dynamic suspension. Comes with 3 liveries: British Rail Blue, British Rail Lodge Logo Blue, and British Rail Intercity Executive? Or just Intercity? I don't know. Anyway, this really, really good version of the 47. It has a lot of minor changes, sound additions that Just Trains put in. Also an updated exhaust. Next up, it is the Class 08 Gronk, which is an updated version of the Class 08 from Northern Transpennine and Tees Valley. Comes with dynamic suspension, got the update at the same time as the 47. You get 2 liveries. You get a normal livery on the left, which, yeah, which is rather interesting. But on the right, you get 08744 Wigan TMD, which was actually stationed at Preston in real life at the time, which shows that the developers have respect for the source material, and also is, like, I like doing an occasional mail shunt in 08744 from time to time. Anyway, next up, timetable layers. The Class 101 from Preston to Carlisle and Tees Valley, the Class 20 from Tees Valley, the Class 31 from Tees Valley, the Class 37 from West Cornwall Local, the Class 40 from the BR Heavy Freight Pack in Northern Transpennine, the Class 45 from Northern Transpennine, the Class 47 from Northern Transpennine, and for whatever reason, the LMS Stanier 8F from Spirit of Steam. But that is a deliberate addition. Of course it is, but it's a deliberate addition because the 8Fs were actually still running quite a few rail tours at the time. So I'll take it, despite the fact it's from Spirit of Steam, which is notoriously one of the worst DLCs ever put into the game. Anyway, pros. Decent route length, which is a total of 48 miles of track. Great non-linearity. You get Blackpool South, Ormskirk and Burnnays branch lines, as well as the Blackpool North to Preston main line. You get oh goodness, you get some of the best scenery ever put into the game. Yeah, like superb scenery. Again, you get absolutely superb rolling stock, especially the Pacer, which is probably one of my top 3 trains ever put in the game. You have tons of timetable layers from other DLCs as shown above, and 3 signal boxes have modelled interiors, namely Blackpool North, Selwick, and St. Anne's on the Sea, which is disused. Because when this route is set is right after the second track on the Blackpool South branch was removed. So like all the signal boxes are in the process of being dismantled, the stations are in the process of being converted to single platforms, and St. Anne's on the Sea station is a complete mess because at the time the route is set, it's just a complete construction zone, which is pretty cool. Cons: we don't get any Class 87 AI on the West Coast Main Line sections around Preston, which would layer in for the West Coast Main Line Preston to Carlisle DLC. However, I think they might be waiting for the Class 86 DLC. We'll see. I hope they do add that. I give this a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, any day of the week. And now on to the honourable mentions. The first one, Brighton Main Line, aka London Commuter, plus TrainSim.cz's Class 700 timetable mod by Dovetail Games. This is because of the massive timetable with thousands of services for the Southern Class 377, the Gatwick Express Class 387, and the Thameslink Class 700 RLU from Southeastern High Speed. The timetable mod adds the FLU 12-car version, the RLU is the 8-car version, and the GWR Class 166 for Great Western Express, despite the fact it still uses the pre-traceable 3 Lightning engine. It is my personal opinion that after Great Western Express, I think Brighton Main Line will next be up on the chopping block for remasters. We'll see. Honorable mention number 2, Southeastern High Speed by Dovetail Games. This is because it's a very varied rolling stock offering, especially with the Class 700 DLC, the overall decent scenery, the Class 37 ROG DLC for electric multiple unit drags, the great route length / non-linearity, which you get the section of HS High Speed 1 from St. Pancras to Ashford International, and the Chatham Main Line from Dartford to Faversham, and also where the 2 crossover at Ebbsfleet. Despite the lack of any Eurostars for HS1 running, and the lack of a 2-car Class 465 and a Sheerness branch. The 2-car 465 would run on said Sheerness branch. We really need a Eurostar in this game just for this route. Honourable mention number 3, the Semmeringbahn by Dovetail Games. This is because of the excellent scenery and challenging drive for trains without an AFB. Like the DBR 103 and the British Rail Class 47. I'm not joking, the 47 is included in the timetable layering in from Blackpool branches of West Coast Main Line, Preston to Carlisle, because there is actually a preserved 47 based in Hungary, and it has been known to go over the Semmeringbahn. That 47 is in British Rail Maroon, and the rail tour only involves British Rail Blue locomotives, but I personally like to see it there because it's pretty cool. Despite the lack of first and third class Eurofiba coaches, we only get the second class variant, which is very unrealistic. The recycling of the OBB 4024 Talent 1 with the wrong sounds. The 4024 having the sounds from the Talent 2 when the Talent 1 sounds nothing like a Talent 2 is one of the things which bug me most in this game. And also we don't get an OBB Railjet locomotive or associated coaches. I have the feeling this may become like if they could get like if Dovetail maybe like made a Railjet and said coaches, they could do it like a DLC for this route. Who knows? They might not. They might just leave it how it is. Honorable mention number 4, the Bernina Linee, aka Bernina Line, by Rivet Games. Scenery is pretty decent. The Allegra is excellent, which you see here. The route's unique status is the only good narrow gauge route for Trains and World, the other narrow gauge route being the Arosa Line, also by Rivet Games, but we don't talk about that because that has the worst scenery ever in Trains and World, and the GE4/4 has the sounds off an Electrostar, a British Electrostar. Anyway, the route is, however, cut off at Spezia Bernina halfway along the route instead of going all the way to St. Moritz, though they did lay the track to St. Moritz. I think Rivet were under time constraints, possibly because of like the 5 circle line. the release of the 5-cycle line at about the same time. Anyway, and we also don't get Bernina Express coaches, though I think in classic Rivet fashion, we are going to get a gameplay pack for those. Honorable mention, number 5, it's the Clinchfield Railroad by Dovetail Games, the only American freight route on this list. This is because of the unique rolling stock offering, it's in West Virginia and Kentucky, and you do, like, coal hauling. It's actually a pretty, like, decent concept. Like, it's the only 20th century American route in Trains of World. Well, this route is getting a remaster at some point. We don't know when. It is being done by Matt Pedleston, who is Trains of World's executive producer. When TSW does a live stream, it's always him in his pink headphones. So in his spare time, he's actually remastering the Clinchfield Railroad, which, like, well done, Matt. I'm really looking forward to that. But I understand, since he's only doing it part-time, and since he has a full-time job already trying to run this Dovetail Games, I imagine the remaster is going to take a while, but I'm willing to wait. Currently, there is pretty poor scenery, and the default sounds on the F7, which is this thing, are pretty terrible because Dovetail wasn't able to source real F7 sounds. They had to use the ones off the ancient Train Sim Classic version, but okay. What else? Yeah. Okay, that's the end of the honorable mentions. And finally, the number 1 route in the entirety of Trains of World, I think you might have guessed it, it's the West Coast Main Line Preston to Carlisle by Just Trains. Like, first off, at the rolling stock, you get the Class 87 electric locomotive, which is probably the best quality locomotive in the game, except for the OBB 1020 Crocodile. The modelling was based on preserved 87035 Robert Burns, which is, like, come on, they had access to a real 87. I think Robert Burns does, like, the Caledonian Sleeper surfaces nowadays. Anyway, the interior sounds were done by Just Trains, with exterior sounds done by Armstrong Powerhouse. I think they came from the 87 Enhancement Pack by Armstrong Powerhouse. Has a fully modelled, for want of a better word, engine room. Has dynamic suspension, of course. And you get 2 liveries. On the left, you got British Rail Blue. And on the right, you've got British Rail Intercity Executive. Next up, we have the Class 101 Diesel Multiple Unit, which is an upgraded version of the 101 included with Northern Trans, Pennine, and Tees Valley. You get 2 and 3 car versions. You get dynamic suspension. Of note, the driving is very difficult due to the manual gearbox. It also gets, like, updated smoke effects, and yeah, just, like, overall improvements to the livery, things like that. I do like driving this thing from time to time if I want to challenge myself. On the left is the 2-car version, on the right is the 3-car version. They're basically identical apart from the number of cars. And it was known back in the day to just to take the middle coach out if you wanted to turn a 3-car into a 2-car. So pretty simple. And the cars could also run in their own in that situation, which is pretty cool. Next up, we also get the Class 47, which is recycled from Blackpool branches with 3 new liveries. British Rail Blue with the Scotty dog on the side, British Rail large logo blue with Eastfield from Eastfield TMD, and British Rail Intercity Executive ScotRail, some of them with a 3D modelled snowplow. Has 3 dynamic suspension, of course. So basically, included in this version is the Blackpool Branches 47, just with these new liveries. So you get the Blackpool Branches version, and then you get the Scotty 47, the Eastfield 47, and the ScotRail 47. Pretty cool. And then there's also a mod that adds even more ScotRail versions, which you should probably go check that out. It's on the Train Sim community website. I personally don't have it downloaded because I find there's far too many 47s in my collection already. But yeah, you can go and check it out if you want to and you have a PC. Next up, we have the Class 08, which was recycled from Blackpool branches with several new color combinations, and it also includes dynamic suspension. So the color combinations are numbered. So you have A, B, C, a weathered version of C for shunting at Hardendale Quarry, which is why it's covered in limestone dust. You also get D, and then you get 08744 Wigan TMD as well for shunting at Preston. Pretty good. I do like firing up the 08 from time to time, especially the limestone dust covered one, because it's so crazy. Like, it looks as though it barely escaped a catastrophic explosion at a flour mill. Like, I'm not kidding. And then also you get some timetable layers. The Class 142 Pacer from Blackpool branches. All the versions of the Pacer layer in. The Class 20 from Tees Valley. The Class 31 from Tees Valley. The Class 37 either from Tees Valley or West Cornwall Local. Both work. The Class 40 from the BR Heavy Freight Pack for Northern Transpennine. The Class 45 from Northern Transpennine. Class 47 from Northern Transpennine, the Flying Scotsman, and the LMS Jubilee from Spirit of Steam, I think. It's hard to tell between the two versions of Jubilee. I might be wrong. It could be Peak Forest. I just don't know. Next, pros. Very, very good scenery to the point of overwhelming me. I'm still finding new stuff after almost 3 months of having this route. The outrageously good rolling stock quality, of course, because it's just trains, tons of timetable layers about the DLCs, and almost every single signal box on the route has a modelled interior, which is crazy, because there are hardly any modelled signal boxes in Trainsim World anyway. There was one on Rivet's Island Line 2022 at Brading. There's 3 from Blackpool branches, and then this one has like 15. It's crazy. Cons... It's mostly linear except for the short branch to Morecambe, but I don't really care. We don't get any Class 86. We don't get the Class 86 or Mark IIF coaches, but these are coming as a separate DLC at the time of recording, which I can't wait for. The 86 is probably my favorite electric locomotive in Britain, apart from maybe the Class 91. I wish we could get the Class 91 as like a DLC for Peterborough Doncaster. That'd be awesome. Anyway. I'd give this an 11 out of 10. Don't question it. It's my list. I get to do what I want. With that, thank you for... Why did I write the word for twice? I must have been writing in a hurry. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. I'll see you next time. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.